Right here in the part 2, so the way I've named my files is that, so version 01, let me pull up the Finder window. So normally, looking at my folder structure, I have like round 1, round 2, round 3. I just have the Z template just so that this sorts at the bottom of the stack of folders. So normally I have like a round 1, a round 2, a round 3. And the way I name my files is that it's basically project code, so RSD is ready set design 001, first project, concept A, since this shoe doesn't really have a name yet. So VO1 means basically version 1, revision 1, or round 1. And O1 is just the first one of those. So chances are before I show it to you, I'm going to go to, well, I'm recording videos, so kind of at each step there'll be a different file. But normally as I'm working, they'll just be, it's like, I'll figure shit out and like, oh, I need to save a new rev of this. So I'll just call it 02, 03, 04, 05, but they're all 01, 02. So just I know what round of stuff it happened in. And I find that generally I don't have an issue. So I keep my reference images also in my 3D models folder just so they don't get separated, and I just call it reference modeling. Okay, so basically just to show you what's in these different files, so I just put the startup file in there that we saved earlier. It's just called startup file. I renamed that, and ignore this folder. This is just all my old working files before I started recording. So there's a startup file for you. There is, and this basically startup file and 0101 are the same because it's where you begin version 1, which is with nothing. So just to show that, so file open, 0101, begin. It's just that empty default scene, right? So that's basically where we started. If we open 2, begin. Right, so basically after we did the first thing, this is where we're going to start the second video. So then what I would do, so let's say we're starting the second video now, so I don't save over this in case I screw something up or you just want to see what happened at the beginning. I'll just say file, save as, 03, I think that makes sense. Save as Blender file. Okay, so now we can just work and save, and we're not going to save over what we started with. Okay, so I'm going to start drawing out the soul, so I'm going to hide this lateral because I don't need to see that. The cube I will turn back on, and you don't see because it's really tiny. There it is. So what you can do is click on the cube and just hit tab on the keyboard, and that'll bring up this pie menu. And we're going to want to go into edit mode. And I'll hit, again, I'm sort of bottoming out on my zoom, so I'm going to hit period to zoom right in on it and scroll out a little bit. So you can see everything's blue by default which means everything's selected. So I'll turn my screencast keys back on. Okay. Alright. So, and if you look up here, it says verts 8 out of 8, which means all 8 of the vertices are selected, or all 12 of the edges, all 6 of the faces. And if I hit A, all that stuff goes to 0 because I have nothing selected. Okay, simple. So I just need a plane. So I'm going to hit B on the keyboard to do a box select, or marquee select is what they would call that in most programs. So just pick these top 4 verts. And if you can't see all 4 of these guys for some reason, that's because this is turned on, which is the limit selection to visible. So if you click that, actually maybe with nothing selected, why isn't that working? Huh. Hold on a second, go back into edit mode. How very strange. I'm in vertex select. Okay, well, I'm not going to worry. I'll definitely show you what this does later, but you should be able to see all the way through your object like a wireframe kind of, even though it's slightly shaded. Just want to pick the bottom 4 vertices and press X and delete the verts, and now you just have this flat plane sitting here. We can go into top view. And again, we're going to come into a point where we probably want some transparency, and I haven't researched how to do that just yet, so I just work around it. It's really not the worst thing in the world. So I'm just going to hit A few times to pick everything, or select all and scale this up like that. And I hit A to deselect, B to box select, and I just do that all the time, like it's super muscle memory at this point. So I'll just B select, drag this over, let's say to there. Usually I just make it as long as the plane roughly. Just kind of drag these guys out like that. kind of guesstimate on it. There's nothing crazy going on in this sole, so it's probably, I need to add some loop cuts in here so I can add shape to this. So to do that, I'm gonna hit Control R and move. If I move my mouse around nowhere, like nothing happens. But if I move it like toward this edge, it'll split it this way. If I move my mouse over this edge, it'll split it this way. So I want to move it this way. Scroll my mouse up a few times, and you can see the count down here of cuts. I think I want 10 just as a starting point. Click, and then you can slide them. I usually click so I can slide them, and I'll move them like obviously not where I want them, and hit Escape, so they'll just snap back to be centered. Then I'll start moving shit into place. So just trying to get it close. Like, it does not need to be perfect. It's about being in the zone for right now because we're blocking stuff in. That. And you don't have to keep these perfectly straight. So like if I was gonna say pick this to move it, I can use this gizmo, or I can also just tap the G key for grab, is what Blender calls it. And if this line doesn't stay vertical anymore, like if it's over here, it does not matter. It's kind of my force of habit that I keep them generally vertical, but I can, you can kind of just, and that's honestly one of the nicer features about Blender is you can just, from anywhere, like you don't have to pick this point and drag it from this point. Like I can be over here and tap G and move it, which is actually, seems like nothing, but it's actually quite useful. I'll just do the same, kind of capturing the shape of that front. I know that that's off, but we'll fix that. Again, we're just getting in the ballpark here, so this, something like that. Okay. Okay, so those are all pretty flat right there, except for this one is to come out, and this one come over here. Like that. Okay, so we definitely don't have enough, detail or information in here to create this shape, right? So I will add another loop, and these don't, by no means do these need to be evenly spaced. I mean, you try to, but it doesn't like break the game of 3D modeling if everything isn't even. It's just not gonna be. Here, and I think I probably, you know what? It's not really gonna matter exactly how much detail I have back here because I have to change the polygon flow anyway, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. Let's just say that's it roughed in. Looks pretty much like the shape. Pull that down. Okay. So that's cool. And I'm going to add a couple loops across the middle, like that. Again, you can slide them, just slide them one way and just hit Escape, and they'll slide into the middle. And then just pick these guys and move them back. And so again, like this is kind of sitting here, I'd probably just drag it here just so that like this distance and this distance is a little more similar. Probably do the same here. Because you just want to, I mean, in general, you just want to have your quads, like the 1, 2, 3, 4 edges relatively even, if you can. Oops. And so pick these, pull them forward, I slide these back. Okay, something like that. So now you see it sort of flipping colors there. What you can do to fix that is just, that's just because these planes are sitting right on top of each other. Just hit A and A to deselect and reselect everything, just drag it up a little bit. And that should fix it. Okay, so what's happening right now is, actually to look at the image plane, you see this dark shadow in there, a little rim edge. We're not gonna exactly mimic that, but we're gonna do something like that. Not even from a design standpoint, just because we have to extrude this sort of the side of the sole upward to create the piece that everything gets glued to. So to do that, or to do that ahead of time, sort of, what we're gonna do is the following. I think, take this, right, okay. So right now, like this is a good base piece. So I'm just gonna go, out of edit mode into object mode. I'm just gonna call this sole. Let's call it, tend to use letters, A, for like step A. I just want to duplicate this because I don't want to destroy this just because it's a good starting point in case I do something like, let me go back later. So I'll hit Shift D to duplicate it, and again, I just move it away and hit Escape. And it'll just snaps right back into position, so you have two of them sitting on top of each other. So just click on the eyeball next to Soul A, and that'll hide the first one. We'll pick Soul A, so maybe I'll call this Soul B. And maybe I'll say like curved. Yeah, sure. And Soul A we'll call flat. Alright. Okay, so if we pick that one, go into edit mode, go into top view and press A to select everything. I'm just going to inset this. So press I on the keyboard, and you'll see you get this band of polygons that pops in. And it doesn't have to be that same thickness of what's going on in the bottom view here, like in this. It doesn't need to be this thickness at all. But I think you're saying the sidewall is like a millimeter and a half thick, so I'm going to try to inset it 3. So I'm going to control the number or how far this is inset. This is all still selected, by the way, of course. I'm going to hit T. And it just means all these interior polygons and verts are still selected. So I still have this inset faces little dialogue. I really wish this popped up somewhere else, but it pops up over here for some reason, which isn't super intuitive as to what's happening, but it is what it is. So for the thickness, I'm just going to type 3. And if boundary and offset even, and yeah. Sometimes by default select outer is turned on, which will, instead of, after I do that inset, all these inside polygons being selected, it'll leave the outside ones selected, which is generally not that useful, but sometimes it is, but I rarely have it that way. So anyways, just pick all the polys, inset it, tap T on your keyboard to get your sidebar here, and then set the thickness to 3. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much all we need to do for that. And so it's not curved yet, but we'll fix that. What I'm gonna do is let's see, it's the best way to show you this. Go into object mode, and I'm just gonna, this really isn't curved, but it's okay, or it's not curved yet. So I'm gonna press Shift D again to copy it, hide that one, just go into this extra one. And what we're gonna do is, so switch your selection modes, mesh selection mode, that's Control Tab. So Control Tab, and I can pick verts or edges or faces. Why aren't my face markers showing up? That's strange. Oops. Area? No, angle. Normally there's little squares that show up on the faces that help make it more obvious that you're in face selection mode, like they'll be in the center of each polygon, but they're not showing up right now. I wonder if, oh, it's because I was in textured mode. So if I go into solid mode, you can see I don't know why that changes, but whatever. Not a huge deal. Alright, right. Okay, so we're going to go into edge mode, so Control Tab, pick on edge, deselect. So what you want to do is hold down Alt and select this edge, and it'll pick this whole row of stuff. What you want to do is press, let's say, Shift D, and it really doesn't matter where you move this, so we can just move it just so we can see it. Then what you want to do is, say, pick another edge of all this big mesh, or like the big flat piece. So just pick any edge and tap the L key, and that'll pick everything that's connected to that. And just press X to delete those. We'll pick the vertices and just delete all that. So we just have this curve laying in space. So what I can do is now, and you'll see why I'm doing this in just a second. So just want to get this edge, so I'll tap L to pick everything associated with it or connected to it. Go into front view. Or actually, see how it's this curve? We just want it to be straight, so we're going to scale it on the Y. So it's S and then the Y key, and then tap 0, and it just flattens it out, and hit enter. Okay, we'll go into vertex mode. Now we can see all of our verts here. Let me turn my lateral view back on, go into the side view. The verts are a little bit hard to see, but you'll figure it out. So just gonna drag this back down toward the bottom-ish. Doesn't need to be exactly on 0 or anything. I'm just going to take these and move them into position to match more or less the bottom of the sole, or just as closely as I can. So I'm using my box selection tool again with the B key, and it's okay for this to, actually it's good that this comes past the image plane. You'll see why. We're going to project something or sort of snap something to this in a minute. This is the faster way I've discovered of creating the soul, or to get this profile to happen. So maybe I'll nudge that up just a bit. Again, this isn't science, it's just art of moving stuff. This last one you just kind of pull off like that, we'll say. Okay, so I'm just going to hide that lateral view again. Okay, I'm just going to hit A to select everything, or I could pick a vert and tap the L key, and that'll pick everything connected. And I'm just going to press the X key now, and I'm going to extrude these, which is not the X key, it's the E key, so E for extrude. And again, I can go in kind of any weird direction, which is not what I want. I want to go in this Y direction. So if I tap the Y key, it'll snap me. So I'm just going to drag it out wide like that. Pick everything, just slide it back till it's like over the shoe, or just like wider than the shoe, like that maybe. Okay. And what we're going to do now is add a modifier to smooth this, because right now these are actually sharp edges in there, and that's not quite what we want. So, okay, click on your wrench for modifiers, smooth, or sorry, subdivision surface. And you see that that edge sort of curved. But anyways, you want to set your view to 3 and see it getting smoother. You also want to set your render to 3 and optimal display. I don't know how to set this up as the default. I believe it's possible, but this is just what I always use, is 3, 3, and optimal display. For what we're doing, that this edge curves like this doesn't really matter, but just as a point of properness, I'm going to hit Control R and scroll up a few times, like 3 times, and see how those edges sharpen up. I'm going to pick this edge, so again I'm Alt right clicking, and we hold down Shift and Alt right click, or well, Alt select this, scale, tap the Y key, and just drag those out just to square out this corner a little bit. Okay, so that's all pretty simple. So this is basically like a target for snapping. So I'm going to go into object mode. I'm going to hide the lateral for a second, or sorry, the sole. And this is like super bright, which I don't know why, but and it's a little hard to see. So there's a couple objects in here. My selection is white, so you can kind of see them. What I'm going to do is come into my material. So with the curved one, which again is the one that has this nice loop of polygons going all the way around, I'm going to go into my material tab. And let's make this a little smaller so we can see what's going on. Okay. I'm just going to give this material so we can see it relative to this other thing. So I'm going to give it, I'm going to just, alright, you want to go into object mode. You can't delete this material if you're in edit mode for some reason, so just go into object mode, again with the tab, and go over to object mode, the minus, and then you can go back into edit mode, and click new. I'm just going to call this Sol A, sure, or just Sol is fine. And if you scroll down somewhere, again, this transparency just doesn't work, and I don't know if that's an error in Blender or what that is, but alright, yeah, this is the point where we get to the Blender render and why I can't tell this what viewport color to be. So what you want to do, normally you're looking for, I forget what the option, I think it's under shading, but so at this point I can't give this, oh wait, if I just go to diffuse, oh, there we go, that's one way to do it. So let's just make it this sort of peach color just so we can see it, or any color is fine. So if you click on diffuse, that'll change whatever color you make it. Okay, so what I want to happen is all this stuff to be laid onto this curvy plane, which I could, from side view, I could sort of go and pick them, but then, you know, it's fine for these, but then as you get around to this toe, it's a little bit trickier to get all of these guys to lay exactly where you want them on that curved surface if you're just trying to match it up. So I'm just going to use a snap to do that. And I'm going to pick everything. I'm just going to move it up. So I think that helps this work a little better. Okay, and so I'm going to go into object mode. And I'll throw a modifier again onto this curved one. So add modifier, sub D, subdivision surface, 2, 3, optimal display. Okay, so now it's nice and smooth. Again, you can see how it goes from sharp to smooth once you turn the modifier on and off. Okay, so I'm going to go into top view, go back into edit mode, and I'm going to turn this little magnet on for snap. And let's see, the element I want to snap to are faces. I want to snap to all these faces of this background thing here, this curved thing. So set that to face. And notice my options change, right? So I want to pick this one here, which is project onto other objects. So click that. Now, so you can see what's happening. I'm just going to drag these 3 little bars over to the right so you can see what's happening in perspective. Okay, so working from over here, all I'm going to do is tap the G key, and I'm not moving my mouse. That just happens as like the background. That's that background snapping. And I just hit escape to undo it. So if I hit G, just tap G and click, it just drops it right into place. And that's all we want. You can hit A to deselect. So now we have that nice curved sole, which is like exactly what we want. And so go into object mode. Could call this one like, let's see, this will be, say, curve target. Actually, you know what? For target things, I tend to give them all like start the name with target, just so they all. Again, this thing, the outliner here, alphabetizes things, so I tend to just make use of that as best I can. So you can hide the target for that. So then I have this nice happy curved sole. So probably it's a good time to go to the next lesson where we will give this some thickness. And we're already in 03, so I can just hit save, because that's where I begin the next thing. And let me stop the recording.